Hello, everybody. It's a work night for me, so I don't have all night. And one would normally state that such things do not need to be addressed. But there's a reason behind why I say and do what I say. Praise has been running around as of late, trying to claim that I fat shamed him and discriminated against him because of his class 3 morbid obesity. Well, first of all, the context in which I said that is a video that's still up on this channel where I highlighted the fact that the dude, Paul, as well as his sister Olive or Kimberly, do not care about Tom. They do not attempt to hold him accountable. In fact, even in that stream, I showed one of the dude's streams at one of his many channels where Kimberly calls her own brother a quote fat ass. I've not called Tom a fat ass. Kimberly did that. What is very disturbing from a medical standpoint, and no, I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, but I do have a little more knowledge than the average bear on these matters. And frankly, like I've said before, I went from being Tom's weight to where I am now. I went from being class 3 to class 1 obese. Probably now I'd be probably 200 odd pounds, about the same. Hello, Derek. I see that you're here. But the point in doing that was not to shame praise. It was to highlight that if you are in your early 40s, if you're 6'3" and 300 or 400 pounds, then you are way too heavy. That is dangerous obesity. That is something I did because I recognize that Praise the I Am's immediate circle only ever spews hatred. It's all that they do for the majority of the panels, particularly the dude who incites and radicalizes these people. And what's sad is that since that time, since highlighting that Praise needs to get this issue addressed quickly, his response is, well, the images are fake. Well, I've never debated Sean Griffin or Kingdom in Context, but Praise did 7 months ago at Donnie's channel, Standing for Truth. No one forced him to turn on his camera. Then he did it again in another debate subsequently this year, just a few months ago, turned on his camera again. Veckel did a stream replying to him where he took a screenshot of Praise's face. And again, I don't think Veckel faked that. I think that was Praise himself. The reason why I highlight this is that, and yes, I am literally doing just that, his alleged brother-in-law and his sister care so very little about Tom and about each other that when I highlighted the fact, look, any doctor, if they had a consult or an appointment with Tom, would write in an encounter, danger morbid obesity, meaning that one of the parts of the diagnosis or diagnoses would literally be, and I'm saying this for your comprehension, look, man, you're way too heavy. You're too obese. You must lose weight. Telling him to do that is not shaming him. It's not making fun of him. It's telling him, listen, man, if you don't get a handle on this, you're anywhere from 5 to 20 times the mortality rate, depending on how you want to judge it, depending on what statistics you want to go by, and depending on what you want to talk about. You want to talk about cancers, you want to talk about cardiological problems, you want to talk about diabetes, you want to talk about brain problems, pretty much everything in the human body gets like this. I'm not going to say a name, but about several years ago, I ran across someone that was a friend of mine's neighbor. And it was a really tragic case because he was a veteran. He had served our country. But following his service, the poor boy had ballooned up to over 500 pounds. And it was sad. I'd go see my friend, and his neighbor would sit out on his porch and just eat and eat and eat. It's unclear why he was doing this, but he got this way until finally the paramedics would inevitably have to come to his house. He could not hardly stand up. He couldn't clean himself at all. I'm trying not to be a little too graphic, but I think perhaps you get my point. He had eaten himself into a position where he had no mobility. I don't know what happened to him, honestly. I heard that he had to be moved to a special facility that could care for his needs. And I don't want to tell the business of that family, but I met some of his relatives, and they gave an even more enlightening look into this former neighbor of my friend. And I'm trying to be nondescript because, again, I'm not trying to shame people. I don't want to put people's business out there badly. But the point of it is, by telling Praise that he needs to deal with these issues, it's not fat shaming. It's actually doing the compassionate thing. It's the dude and Kimberly who don't care. When you highlight that all that the dude and Kimberly do are fat shame people, commit hate crimes, incite hatred, abuse people, discriminate against people, very frequently on a racial basis, as they've done with Jordan and Veckel, for example, calling them racial slurs, then it really does make me ask the question, why would Praise even bother bringing up fat shaming? The only people who believe that are deluded Praise the I Am followers who will who will follow Praise to hell and back, even if Praise leads them right to hell. They don't care. My point is that, look, I've been there. I've been morbidly obese before. I know how painful and miserable that was. I remember what it was like having to plan my day around times that I thought I'd be mobile. I remember the joint pain that I had, which was pretty much unending and unspeakably bad. I'm not coming to this from a position of trying to ridicule Praise. I'm not his sister. But the fact that, number one, he does not take this as someone stating, listen, man, you need to take control of your life, or else the consequence is very likely to be that you're going to be crippled very shortly in your life, and then it will prove fatal because that is what happens. The human body is not supposed to be, 400 pounds. It's just not built to do that. Then I ask the question, why would Praise redirect away from Dude and his sister when someone highlights how little that they care about him? It's concerning to me that Dude, and to some level Kimberly, have terraformed that environment into such a toxic environment that the moment you disagree with them or highlight any inconsistencies of theirs, no matter how great or small, you're permanently banned. And doxing is then okay, slander is then okay. I mean, seriously, what concerns me is that I spent the time telling Praise, listen, I want you to improve yourself. I want to see you healthy and happy. You need to address this. Get a doctor. Go talk to a nutritionist. Talk to a dietitian. That's not fat shaming. Now, getting to the Dude and Kimberly for a moment, what's alarming about the hatred that they spread is that it's never ending. Tom is smacked in the middle of this. He's participating in it, but no one seems to have the wherewithal or the decency within that circle of people to say, this is a toxic environment. When the dude has to do a half-hearted, halfway apology saying that he is the reason why the PIA channel is so very toxic, because he is a very toxic individual, then could I posit to you the problem lies at the feet of Praise the I Am, Kimberly, and Dude. I have no resentment toward these individuals, unlike them. They clearly resent a number of different people. Good Lord. They still resent Smokey Saint, and he's not even a player on the board. He doesn't even do YouTube. They resent people probably from over a decade ago that none of us really even know about. They resent Guru Lady, who previously used to be a part of their channel and a watcher at their channel, but has since called them out for their often bad behavior. My point is that what disturbs me so greatly at that channel is that it is an obvious non-Christian environment. It reminds me like going into a low-quality, very skeevy dive bar. Not that I would spend time in places like that, but if you know what I'm talking about, then you understand my point. It's like going to the seediest part of town and then wondering why it's so seedy. Why is it so crime-ridden? Why is it that people who don't want that sort of activity around them are, here? Well, the same thing is true over at Praise's panel. What I'm deeply concerned about is that he's already been influenced by Cuthbert incited into a death threat. Exactly what are his sister or the dude going to do, seeing as they have such little regard for Praise? All they usually do is attack other people almost every single night. The question in my mind is, if Cuthbert could incite, move Praise to make a death threat like we saw very recently, then what are Kimberly and the dude capable of inciting him to do? Since obviously they don't care about him, since obviously nothing really matters at that channel except entertainment value, and that it's such a toxic environment, it does make me wonder, these people are capable of death threats. What's next? I'm not going to say that because I don't want to share the family business that I know about the whole wags. They shared that with me. I don't know if it would be right for me to say that or not. But I will say this much. If the Christian message of love, of compassion, would tell me this, if I saw someone who was morbidly class 3 obese, I'm not going to look at that person and call them a lard ass or a fat ass like Kimberly did to her brother. I would look at that person and say, we need to address this, because if you go to a doctor, is it fat shaming if a doctor then says, hey, just want to let you know that I'm diagnosing you with obesity, class 3 obesity, morbid obesity, and I'm recommending treatment to address this problem before your obesity causes many other problems, before ultimately it proves fatal. And believe me, it is not a fun way to be. I very vividly remember when I was 300 pounds and above. It was an utter nightmare. I think I don't know if I'm going to end here, but I'll introduce one more thought. I mentioned earlier in this year I had some x-rays performed on my lower body, the first I had in a very long time. My joints normally should have much more wear, tear, and damage than they do at present. And I say that because when you're spastic, you have an irregular gait pattern. The body does not like that. It reacts very poorly to an irregular gait, and that, typically speaking, is going to cause, what's this? Your mic has a source. Why does it do that? Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm back. Am I still distorted? I don't know why it's doing that, but it seems like every time I live stream, I have this problem for some reason, and I don't know why. If that's the case, okay. Thank you, Mon. But as I was trying to say, if you go to a doctor and you state to the doctor, here's the encounter. Here's what it's going to look like on the medical record. He's going to take a look at you. Let's say you go in and say, I don't know, I dropped a brick on my toe. He's going to treat that. But in the encounter, it's also going to state, by the way, the patient has a BMI, which is going to have an ICD-10 code. That code is then going to designate your obesity based on age range and weight. And, well, if that matches obesity, it's going to state, especially for an adult or for a child, on the doctor's encounter, hey, you're obese. In fact, you can be medically diagnosed as morbidly class 3 obese. It's not unloving for a doctor to say, hey, you're morbidly obese, you're class 3 obese. Here's the ICD-10 code. You need to lose weight. And I just posit to you that, what concerns me is this. Despite that, as I was trying to say, most spastics have horrible joints. A, they don't stretch. B, they don't exercise. C, they just generally don't take care of themselves. They don't eat properly, whatever. Then what happens is that they degrade rapidly. That's why spastics often die very young, by way of comparison. Well, normally your joints as a spastic would look terrible. Mine just look like an average 30-year-old's because I've bothered to take care of myself. Now, that doesn't make me superior or inferior, but what concerns me for a guy like Tom is that he's in his 40s, easily 300 or 400 pounds plus, 6'3". When you're that tall, you're already going to have problems, especially as you age. But I really do wonder, how mobile is he going to be? I mean, as it is, he live streams virtually every night, 6 to 8 hours. So he's apparently not leading a very active life. I don't know how he's sleeping. There's no way you can have a normal sleep schedule when you stream to that degree. And furthermore, what kind of activity levels could you possibly have if you're streaming all night and then you sit on your butt all day, working from home, which is the most I'm willing to say about Praise's work if he told the truth about that. But my point is simple. There is no way that anyone could convince me that what praise is doing is conducive to a healthy lifestyle. And there is no way that you could convince me either that his cohorts, Josh Morales, Josh Musics, Kimberly, Paul Furtivore, the dude, care about him enough to state, listen, I know this isn't easy to hear, and I'm not saying this to be ugly to you, but instead of preaching hatred every single night, instead of constantly inciting people, we need to address this, especially when you're like Paul, any naturopathic naturopathy doctor. I'm concerned for praise. I legitimately am. I do not want this for him. He's got to be in unimaginable pain. Good comment, Bond. At his height, says Bond, I'm going to say he's pushing 400 plus. I don't know his exact BMI. I don't know how heavy he is, but that's probably accurate. And that's what I'm concerned about. Look, I live in South Louisiana. Obese people is a normality down here, unfortunately. The delicious but rich Cajun food is extremely unhealthy food. I mean, it's slightly more healthy than the food you can get from fast food, but not by much. And frankly, what concerns me is that I can't tell you how many obese children I see, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, that have BMIs that just blow your mind. It's not uncommon, at least in my area, that you have not slightly overweight children, but that you have obese and sometimes morbidly obese 6 year olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds. And then when I look at the adult cases, like praise, it's like, man, if I know what his doctor would tell him, but I also know he's not going to listen to his doctor. The doctor's hands are somewhat tied at that point. And conversely, he's involved with people who care so little about him as a person that they don't have the good decency, the Christian love to say to him, dude, listen, we got to get this thing under control. We're going to do everything we can do for you. Instead, it's just the usual trolling, hatred, incitement. And then if you say anything about it, especially if you're me or if you're Bond, then you're, like this demon swine for recording or documenting themselves in their own words. Take this away from this, if you will. To fat shame praise would be to make fun of him for being fat, like his sister did when she called him a fat ass. To tell him, listen, dude, you're hanging around people that don't care about you. You're making all the worst life decisions possible to utterly ensure that you are going to have the worst possible future, if you have a future for very long, that is. Because all of what you're doing suggests that you are wrecking your health. And frankly, you can't just go buy a new engine and throw it in there. You can't just replace a bone like you replace a broken axle. That's just not the case. Bond says, I bet he could drop a good amount of pounds by making a very few small changes to his diet and adding about 20 minutes of walking a day to start out. If even 20 minutes, I totally agree. If he would get out and move, he could easily improve his health. And that's what I'd like to see for praise. If he would get his vitamin D exposure that he desperately needs, if he would walk around 5 to 15 minutes a day as a start, you don't have to go to the gym. Or, I knew at one point he had a gym membership. Just go walk on the treadmill. We're not asking you to climb, to run a marathon. I'm not saying you need to get a world class 675-pound bench. No, that's not the goal here. The goal here is we got to do something about this. And frankly, the other thing I would love to see is that since the dude owns the PIA channel, is that he revokes Tom's ability to stream on the channel, which will only be rewarded to him on the condition that we see progress regarding his health. Look, I don't want to shame praise. What I'm genuinely concerned about is that will he be here in 5 years? Will he be here in 10 years? Well, when you're that heavy, statistically speaking, the answer is unlikely. And it ultimately comes down to what you're saying, James. You're exactly right. You can't help those who do not want to help themselves. They won't do it. And I understand that. That used to be me. I would not go to a doctor. I hate talking to orthopedic surgeons. I hated getting x-rays. I waited over about a decade before I got x-rays. But I now understand, which I wouldn't do when I was younger. Look, I have to do it. It doesn't matter what I think about it. I have to keep an eye on what's going on with my joints due to my irregular gait pattern. I have to work out. I have to keep up with myself because if I don't, when in my late 30s or early 40s, I have my first functional decline, the severity of that decline is largely controllable within certain parameters based on your physical condition prior to the decline. It's happened to all spastics. What concerns me at the Praise channel is that I don't understand how this is a healthy environment. It certainly is not exalting Jesus because Jesus is the Prince of Peace. If all you did was exalt the Lord Jesus, then it stands to reason the peace he gives, John 14, which is not like the world gives, but that the Father gives to him who then gives it to us, would definitely not be, how do you want to say it? Would definitely not be this revocable peace, would definitely not be this peace like the world gives. It comes with stipulations and conditions, a peace that is meaningless, but instead that there wouldn't be fighting. There wouldn't be all of this racial ridiculousness that you see at that channel. And what's most concerning to me is that, look, if you're going to try to conceal what's going on under the fat shaming guise, then, and by the way, greetings, Better Sheep. I see you're here, Levite, Better Sheep. Good to see you, friend. If you're going to conceal the what's right in front of our faces by saying, "Oh, I showed and I didn't show my face. That was a filter." Oh, you're fat shaming. It really makes me raise the question of that. If someone tells you as you're about to run off of a cliff, watch out, you're running off of a cliff, stop now. Are you going to keep going? I was coming home from work today and I nearly got in a wreck. I was only about 2 to 3 feet away from a very inattentive driver who, right in the middle of the intersection as we were leaving, almost ran straight into us. I mean, for some reason, they just turned and looked right at us as they turned. Genius Louisiana drivers, everybody. And had we not stopped when we stopped, I would have been in a straight on, head on collision. That's pretty risky business. And I don't have to explain why. For a spastic, that can be pretty terrifying. It's hard to become more spastic, unless, of course, your head bounces off of auto glass or perhaps a, what do you call it, a dashboard. But even still, what concerns me about praise is that given this car wreck scenario that nearly happened to me today, does praise realize that he is very quickly careening with something that will absolutely devastate him? And yet, Dude and Kimberly are at the wheel driving him into such a situation where he just doesn't seem to get it. He is about to careen one way or another with something that will have drastic, life altering circumstances. But either way, um, better sheath. Greetings, Stefan. I'm going to buy 10 50-pound bags of feed. That's 500 pounds of feed. Good for you, man. That's a lot of feed. And I guess I'll just check the chat. Let's see. Hopefully, I do not have those distortions. It seems like no matter what I do, for some reason, I do not have the best connection here. Derek, okay, well, thanks for dropping by. And let's see. This is a good place to end it. Stefan, I know you're joking. The sad thing is, and this is what really grabs me about that whole channel. I genuinely, they have nothing I want. They genuinely lack anything that I could possibly want. And they're still going to claim, well, you're just jealous because you don't have a StreamYard. If you're going to use your StreamYard subscription to control and manipulate Linda Edmondson, I don't want it in the first place. But seriously, if you care so little about your own brother or alleged brother-in-law that you won't actually do the loving, caring things to see to it that he cares for himself and address the problems in your own lives, then I don't see what you possibly could have that anyone would want, much less me. I really don't. I really don't. Someone please tell Praise, go to the doctor, get a physical, and please be honest with the doctor. Listen to him when he tells you what you need to do. Get your nutritionist or your dietitian. And frankly, I realize workout trainers at gyms can be really sketchy people. I mean, they'll give you really bad advice, probably a good 7 or 8 times out of 10. But at minimum, even if you're not going to engage in resistance training, strength-based training, you don't have to do that to take walks at the park. You don't have to do that to walk on a treadmill. You don't have to do that to swim. You don't have to do that to make basic changes in your diet. And you definitely don't have to do any of those things to curb all of the live streaming. I mean, I already know what's going to happen. It's like, almost 11 o'clock or 10:30, really. I'm sure this will be a 5-hour praise stream following this. I'm pretty certain they're probably watching this. Please, somebody tell them to stop committing hate crimes. Stop being stupid. You need to address these things. Can you put the link in? Well, Levi, I can do that for a few minutes. Like I said earlier, it is for me a work night, so I can't stay up very late. Copy, and let's see. I'm trying to remember how to do this. Here is the join link. Should have just come in right here. So hopefully you can come in, Levite, if you're going to come in. I really cannot keep this going a ton longer. This is actually longer than I intended to talk, but I wanted to make it plain. It is sad when you have to make an excuse like fat shaming to cover up for what is in front of everyone's faces. That's actually gaslighting. I'm going to wait a moment and see if anyone comes in since Levite wanted the link. I'm assuming he means the join link, and perhaps that he'll come in here. It's sad, man. It is really sad. It's sad to see people that will not take care of themselves. And then it's sad to see people in a situation where their immediate friends surrounding them care so little about themselves, much less other, or care so little about other people, I should say, that they do nothing to highlight what's going on in their friends' lives. That definitionally is not your friend. Biblically, it certainly is in Proverbs 17, verse 17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for trouble. Well, if you're going to come in, Levite, I'm waiting. I'm not going to wait a ton longer, my friend. I have to get to bed. But we will see. The link is in the description, or rather the comments. I can't put it in the description, I don't think, as I stand, so that's not going to be an option. But I'll give it a moment more, and then I got to call it. It's late. I'm trying to join now. Well, let's see. Oh, the sock accounts are here from the trolls. Yeah, see, this is hilarious. I don't know why people get so bent out of shape when I highlight certain people and certain things. It's so funny. I guess that's what happens when you have no life. I see nobody in the backstage, so just please try to come in, Levite. I'm sure you're listening. Uh, However, I can't wait a ton longer, my friend. It's nothing personal. I just got to get to bed, man. I'm getting kind of tired anyway. Let's see. I can maybe do this. I did not think of that earlier. Hold on a second, Levite. Let's see if I can do it like this. Okay, I texted you. So there we go. Evidently, I don't have enough data. Oh well, we can try some other day. Like I said, I'm not trying to do these streams regularly. I'm a working man. I got stuff to do. James says, lol, they get lonely with their doctrine of devils they have to try to cause mischief and mayhem. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's sad because in a lot of ways, and that's really a good place to put the bookmark, shall we say. It's sad because in a lot of ways, how do I want to say it? A lot of this behavior, if you look past the gaslighting, if you look past the hate crimes, it's all attention based. They want people to look at them. The problem is, it's like looking at a nasty, horrible car wreck. It's just when you tell them, my friend, this is not a modern art masterpiece, it's a car wreck, then they suddenly don't want to be told it's a car wreck. What do you think a car wreck looks like? It doesn't look like a Van Gogh, certainly. It doesn't look like Escher. It doesn't look like, I don't know, Michelangelo. It's not the Mona Lisa. It's a car wreck. So, either way. And that basically is a good point. Well, thanks, y'all, for tuning in. I got to get to bed. Good night.